Hello YouTube family. In this particular video, we will be writing some hard level SQL problem solutions. If you have a SQL interview coming up pretty shortly, or for that matter, just want to sharpen your SQL query writing skills, this one is definitely for you. And the best part is it's all free. You don't need to download any complicated installation setup files, do not need to do any data uploads, nothing. All you need is just an internet connection and a browser to get started. So, without much ado, let's get started. Here we are in this portal sqlpractice.com. This is like a free portal for anyone who is interested to brush up their SQL skills. And you don't need to sign in or do any credential creation for this. It's open to all. You can click on the URL and you'll land onto this page. There are two types of tables or databases rather. We have a hospital database and a Northwind database. We will be utilizing the hospital database for this particular purpose. Now, if I can take a look at the schema, so we have four tables: patients, doctors, admissions, and province names. The connections between them seem very straightforward and self-explanatory. Patient ID joins with admissions using the patient ID column. Doctors and admissions get joined by the doctor ID and the attending doctor ID. And we have the patient and province names being joined by the province ID. Seems straightforward. Now, I haven't solved these questions before. This is the first time that I'll also be taking a look at these problems. So we will debug together in case we get stuck. I'll be filtering only on the hard questions, and I'll be starting the set of questions. Be clearing the screen. So let's look at this. This talks about grouping patients into groups of 10, like weight groups of 10, and the number of patients belonging to that weight group need to be appearing in this output. So we have the weight group column and the count of the patients belonging to the weight group. The point to note over here is that the weight group is always a multiple of 10, like 140, 130, 120, which is uniform. That's actually good. Now let's try to write a solution for this. So the approach will be that first we will be creating the weight group, and then we will be counting the patients who belong to that specific weight group. So I just run the patients table. Let me first just select the patient ID and create the weight group for them. Now for me to create the weight group, I'll do a case statement. When weight mod 10 equals to 0, which means that it's directly a multiple of 10, then weight. Else, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the weight by 10.0 10.0 to convert this into 10, so that this gives me the floor value of this, and as weight group. Now let's see if this works out. The weight groups appear to be working fine. Now let's count the patients. This will form my inner query. I'll be writing an outer query on top of it. Select count patient ID as I'll have to name it the same as what's there in the expected output. Patients in group, and I'll have to select weight group. Group by the weight group. Let me run this. Seems there is an error. Let's figure it out. Okay. The issue is that we have not ordered it correctly. It says the order has to be descending. Order by weight group. This should work. Perfect. And we have a solution for the first problem. Now let's look at this next problem. We'll just click the next question option here. We'll clear the screen for the first problem. Okay, here's what it says. So it says show patient ID, weight, height, is obese from patient's table. Okay, so it's asking me to flag patients who are obese. Now the way to calculate obesity is by this formula, weight by height square. But the point to note over here is that in the table the height is given in centimeters, and in the formula this expects to be in meters. So we'll have to do that conversion before we move ahead. Let's write the query. Select from patients. I'll be creating the formula, but before that let's select the other columns. Patient ID, it says weight, then height, and finally obesity. And again I need to use the case statements. Weight divided by height, and I'll need to use the squared function, but I'll be using power in this case. Height by 100, and I need the answer in floating points, so I'll have to do 100.0. Square of this is greater than equals to 30, then 1 else 0, and as is obese from patients. Let's see if this works. And we have a solution. And this did not require any ordering, so we are good with this problem. Now let's go to the next question. Clear the screen for this one. So it says show patient ID, first name, last name, and attending doctor's specialty. So we have 3 tables, it seems: patients, admissions, and doctors. It's asking us to show only patients whose diagnosis is epilepsy and doctor's first name is Lisa. Check patients, admissions, and doctor's table for the required information. Okay, so I'll just open up the schema for all 3 of them. Alright, so let's start writing the queries. Before I write the select columns, let's just first write down the joining tables. From patients, left join admissions on p dot patient id equals to a dot patient id. I've joined doctors to alias ssd on p, or rather a dot attending doctor id equals to d dot doctor id. Perfect. Let me just run a select p dot patient id just to check syntactically if my query is correct or not. Okay, syntax is working. Solution obviously is incorrect because we haven't selected the right columns. Now let's do that. What is the output? So the output says patient ID and then we have patient first name. First name, patient ID is patient ID, and then it says patient last name, and we have an attending doctor specialty. That comes from the doctors table. D dot specialty as attending doctor specialty, I guess that's what the name is. And we have a filter condition. It shows only patients whose diagnosis is epilepsy, where diagnosis is coming from the admissions table. Equals to epilepsy. I'll put this in the upper condition in case there are some mixed cases in the data. And it says doctor's first name is Lisa, and d dot first name equals to Lisa. I'll put the upper condition over here as well. Now let me try to run this if this works. And we have an answer. Moving along, in this problem we are going to talk about generating a temporary password. So it says all patients who have gone through admissions can see their medical documents on the site. Those patients are given a temporary password after their first admission. Show the patient ID and temporary password. And there are some conditions for the password. Okay. Now, what are the two tables? We have admissions and patients. We know patient ID is the joining key. From patients, I'll alias this is P, join admissions, I'll alias this is A, on P dot patient ID equals to A dot patient ID. Select what is the expected output. We have patient ID, p dot patient ID, and we have the temporary password. Now let's see the rules. It says the password must be patient ID, numerical length of the patient's last name, and year of patient's birth. Seems there has to be a concatenation of this, so I'll use the concat patient ID, which is p dot. Then it's the numerical length of the patient's last name, and it's length. And to use the trim function as well, so that we don't just take any spaces. And it will be p dot last name, and then finally we have the year of birth, year, birth date, as this output is going to be as temp password. Let's see if this works. Okay, we got an error. Now let's see what the issue is. Okay, it seems like there are some duplicates in this query. Just add a distinct keyword to this, and that should work fine. And we have a solution for this. So this solves our problem. In the next question, we have an insurance based problem. So it says each admission costs $50 for patients without insurance and $10 for patients having insurance. All patients with even patient IDs have insurance. Now it says given each patient has to be attributed a value yes if they have an insurance and no if they do not have an insurance, and then we need to add up the admissions total cost. Okay, from admissions I will be doing the select. The first thing that I'll be doing is grouping the patients and counting the total number of patients in each group, that is having insurance and not having insurance. Post that we'll calculate the cost. So select patient case when patient ID mod 2 equals to 0, then yes. Just ensure the name, the convention of the output is the same as it's expected, else no, and as insurance, and then I'll do a count of this. Count patient ID I'll just show that to ensure that we are just doing distinct count. I'll add the distinct keyword. Let me run this and see if this works. Okay, for some reason it just has no coming up. Let's see. Count of patient ID case when patient ID mod 2 equals to 0, then yes, which means even patients have insurance, and else doesn't have insurance. Group by, it will be the second condition. Okay, and now we have the counts. Now I'm going to add a subquery on top of this, or a master query actually, and make this a subquery. Select, I'll make this count as CNT. As insurance, and then case when as insurance equals to yes, then CNT multiplied by 10, else CNT multiplied by 50, and as cost after insurance from this particular table. Let's run this and we have a perfect solution.